It's time to go back to 13 Dead End Drive. 13 Dead End Drive was created by Dr. David Wyman and originally published by Milton Bradley in 1993. I finally got my hands on an original 1993 Milton Bradley edition, and we're going to compare it to this 2023 30th Anniversary edition from Winning Moves Games. Now, I've already covered 13 Dead End Drive in a previous video where I compared this 2023 Winning Moves Games edition to the 2002 spin-off game 13 Dead End Drive. So if you'd like to see that, I'll leave a link in my description for you. It's a pretty cool video, and the rule changes and design choices that they made for 13 Dead End Drive were pretty neat. But for now, we're going to compare the OG, the 1993 Milton Bradley edition, against the 30th Anniversary Winning Moves edition. Let's get these two games out on the table. Oh boy, this is awesome. All right, so here I've got the 1993 original Milton Bradley edition of 13 Dead End Drive. And on this side, I've got the 2023 30th Anniversary edition from Winning Moves Games. So let's take a look and see what the differences are, starting with the box on the 1993 edition. Now, I don't have it out on the table because obviously I've got some space issues, but I'll throw some pictures up on the screen. Now, this one's a long box. The 1993 edition is a fold-in-half board, so the box is longer than the 2023 edition. The cover art is awesome. I love the whimsical oil painting style. I think it's just gorgeous, and it gives you a pretty good idea of what sort of zany, murderous action you have in store for you. When you flip it over, you see some nice close-up shots of the game board and some pictures of kids enjoying the game, as well as a nice description of what the gameplay is like. So pretty standard fare for board games. When you open it up, there's a little cardboard insert that has miniature bios for all 12 of the little heirs that are going to be competing for dear departed Aunt Agatha's fortune, which I thought was really cool. I'm always big on adding lore to board games. It just makes it more exciting to have a little extra story. There's ample room to store all of the game components. Like I said, since it's a lift-off top box, it's pretty solid and holds together very nicely. Now, when we have a look at the 2023 edition, right away the thing we're going to notice is the box is smaller, and there are some portraits missing from the upper right and upper left-hand quarters of the game box. And that's obviously because they're shrinking it down. They wanted to keep the titling about the same. But otherwise, the box is a pretty faithful recreation of what we see in 1993. When we flip it over, again, we see a pretty faithful recreation of 1993's cover art from the back of the box. However, we have some updated photos of the kids playing. Oddly enough, they picked some models that look pretty similar to the kids in the 1993 edition, which I thought was a nice touch. The description is a little bit different, and on the Winning Moves edition, they also actually list the contents of the box, which I thought was pretty cool. So overall, not a huge change artistically to the game boxes, but we do see some dimensional differences. Now let's hop into the game itself, starting with the 1993 edition. So the basic premise of the game is 12 possible heirs have gathered at poor departed Aunt Agatha's mansion for the reading of Agatha's will. At the end of the night, one lucky heir will escape with their life and a fortune. Along the way, other heirs will have the opportunity to walk that heir into traps that can cause them to die under mysterious circumstances. Now also, throughout the night, as players attempt to set off these traps, and in order to do so, they'll need to draw these cards, which will have little symbols on them telling them which traps they're able to activate. But amongst these cards, let me find one here, because geez, I should have stacked this deck. It's like I was going to make a video about this game. Amongst this, here we go, are detective cards, and every time that you draw a detective card, the little detective on the board moves one space closer to the front door of the mansion. If he reaches the front door of the mansion, the game is over, and the player whose portrait is up here above the fireplace wins and inherits Aunt Agatha's fortune. Now, the other way that that player can win earlier is navigating their character out of the front door while their portrait is still up above the fireplace. However, If their portrait's above the fireplace, they're going to be coming under heavy fire from their opponents because they'll want to eliminate them from the game for their own chance at inheriting the fortune. The portrait changes when players roll doubles with the dice that are provided. Otherwise, they can use the dice to move the characters. Each die counts individually, so for instance, you can move 2 characters. In this instance, I rolled a 2 and a 4, so I could move one character 2 spaces and another character 4 spaces. So it's kind of nice. When you roll doubles, you have the opportunity to move one character, the sum total of both of those dice. So if I rolled 2 4s, I could move one character 8, or I could choose to change the portrait. So there's a lot of strategy involved. There are other minor rules, like a character, if they are on one of these little trap spaces. So how this works is if you navigate a character onto a trap space, you can draw one of these cards. If you happen to get a card that represents the trap they're in front of, you can choose to set that trap off and eliminate that player. Now here's where some of the strategy comes in. You could put your own player on that trap simply to get one of these cards and bluff that you didn't get the correct one and keep it in your hand for later so that you can eliminate an enemy player. Also, in doing that, there's a rule that negates your ability to move a character back onto a trap in the same move. So let's say I rolled 4 and the character's already in a trap spot. I can't go 1, 2, 3, 4 and put them right back on the trap spot to go again. They have to wait a whole turn, or at least till somebody else's. So there is some strategy involved in when you choose to put players, whether they are your heir character or somebody else's heir character, on a trap space. And that being said, every single character can be moved by every player who's playing. So you're not limited to moving only your characters. You can move other people's characters, which is why bluffing is so important in this game. You don't always want anybody to know who you're holding in your hand, because you can always act like you're intending to kill that character, like they belong to somebody else, so that they don't get targeted. So it's a little bit of bluffing, a little bit of strategy, and a whole lot of theatricality with these traps. Like I had demonstrated, the suit of armor falling over on the tennis coach. You have a little chandelier that drops with the push of a switch. You have a staircase that'll knock people over when you push a switch. There's a little bookcase here that knocks the ladder over and knocks the characters over. So I'm always a big fan of these set piece games that have these little props that do that kind of stuff. Plus the setting that's very reminiscent of murder mysteries like Clue, with the twist that people are still getting knocked off throughout the game, is pretty exciting. I really like the setting. I think it's a lot of fun. When we look at this 1993 edition, the quality of parts are very decent. The plastic is nice and thick and chunky. There are some finer pieces, like the little bit that hangs the chandelier, but it kind of needs to be a smaller piece in order to fit into the little hook mechanism and work correctly. And I honestly, at the age that you're intending to play this game, that's not really a big deal. It's a very minor gripe. The 1993 edition, one thing I'm going to note, like I said before, the board folds in half. I'm a huge fan. It's all one solid piece. There's no cutouts. All of the set pieces are held on by these little plastic clips that clip onto the edge of the board and hold them in place. And the corners are nicely taped. So it's a nice thick board that folds in half with nicely taped corners. This clearly stood the test of time. Now, I'm sure sharp-eyed viewers have noticed the difference in the suits of armor. Everything else looks the same, but you'll see on the 2023 edition, we have a suit of European style armor circa, about 1500, whereas this, well, we have Spartan armor. It just so happens that this little suit of Spartan armor made by McFarlane Toys is about the same size as the Medieval Knight and works as a stand-in, considering this version of 13 Dead End Drive was missing its suit of armor. So I hope you'll bear with me for the review's sake. But other than that, as you can see, all of the detail has carried over to both games beautifully. And so we're going to take a second. We're going to hop over to the 2023 edition so we can look at this again. The biggest differences are material. Design-wise, I will point out that the board itself, the art is brighter. It is now a quarter folding board. It's much thinner tag board as well, which is not something I'm a huge fan of. And In order to fit the set pieces on the game, there are now little cutouts in the board where small clips pop through the holes and then secure the actual set pieces onto the board. It works, it's functional. I'm not a huge fan. I just don't like the extra cutouts. There are different spots where the tag board can get worn out, damaged, and it starts to look worn out and old over time, especially if this game is well loved, which it deserves to be. As a bluffing game, this is a lot of fun. I have always had a blast playing 13 Dead End Drive, and actually, again, I want to refer back to my last review where I compared the 2023 Winning Moves edition to the 2002 13 Dead End Drive by Parker Brothers, which is a spin-off of 13 Dead End Drive with some really great game mechanics. So don't miss out on that video. There's a link in the description. But again, 13 Dead End Drive just on its own is a really fun bluffing game with a really cool motif. I love the murder mystery feel. I love how it looks like Clue. I really very much like that they brightened the game board in 2023. The art is the same. The art is largely the same. It looks mainly different in that the print process is a little bit cleaner on the Winning Moves edition, but it looks like they used the same, I think it's the same source art, just touched up for print. Because I was not able to spot any differences. Everything looks pretty much the same. The biggest differences are in the construction itself, that being the clips that pop through the board and the overall thinner profile of the tag board. And that's really it. Is the 1993 edition. Every bit of the tag board, every bit of the paper product in this is nice and thick. The plastic seems the same between both the 2023 and the 1993. So I gotta say, the Winning Moves edition is a really, really great representation of 13 Dead End Drive. Now, I also want to take a brief moment here and compare the rule books before we get too much into the rest of the comparison here, because, boy, I'm already gushing way too far in that direction. We can see there are very few changes aside from materials and construction between the 2023 and the 1993. We'll get into some of the nitty-gritty in a moment, but as far as the rule books, this was another thing that I thought was great. Winning Moves did a really good job replicating the rule book. So in 1993, you get two separate books. You get an initial setup book. This is how to set up the game for the very first time when you're punching out all the pieces and finding out where everything goes. Then there's an actual rule book that contains the rules of the game and your basic pre-game setup after the nitty-gritty of the parts have already been assembled. So now everything's partially put together and should be easy to snap together on the board. So it's nice. You have an initial setup and a quick start guide. The instructions are very thorough. Everything's printed on these nice fold-outs, nice heavy 20-pound paper. Color prints, kind of limited, not full color, not sealed or anything like that, but clearly these rule books have stood the test of time, so very nicely made. And the cool thing is Winning Moves Games did an excellent job copying the rule book from the original. Now, obviously there are updates that account for the difference in how this game is put together, but otherwise it looks really similar. So the rules and the construction guide are all updated, but they're printed to look very similar to the 1993 edition. So Winning Moves went to a lot of trouble to really hit on all that nostalgia and make sure that everything looked true to form. So even though there have been updates, I can't stress enough, I'm very pleased. The trade-offs are really minor. So let's get into the comparison a little bit more hardcore. So first off, one of the biggest things that I noticed, if we're going to talk about anything detracting from quality, is the dice in the original 13 Dead End Drive. They've got Arabic numerals, they're red with white print, and they're etched. The numbers are etched on, whereas the ones with the Winning Moves edition from 2023, 30th anniversary, they are simply painted on. So advantage 1993. I'm also going to say advantage 1993 on the board that folds in half and has taped edges. It's completely sealed. Clearly it stood the test of time. However, artistically, the Winning Moves board actually wins in my book in that they've brightened the art. It's easier to see. It stands out. And The quarter folding board had an unforeseen advantage. That is, when the board folds in half, you have this kind of unsightly divot in the center here, which isn't a huge deal, except it bisects the most important spaces in the game where the character actually exits the board. And so one nice thing about this quarter folding board is it lays more flush. So not only is it brighter and easier to see, but it does lay more flush, and it's easier for you to set the player characters along spaces that would normally be bisected by seams on the board. I mean, a minor thing, but again, there are some trade-offs when you're going from a quarter fold board to a half fold board. The construction of the actual set, both are very structurally sound. I will say in 1993, there was a lot more tag board at play. When you turn these around, you'll notice that the frame for the center portion of the set actually is a complete enclosure, whereas it's just a facade in the 2023 edition. I also like the clips that hold everything to the board in the 1993 edition versus the 2023. Again, functionally, the game is almost identical. I mean, really almost identical. The pieces look great. The tag board's a little bit thicker on the player pieces, 1993 versus 2023, but the art, again, the art, I would say, when I look at these, the characters are printed a little bit larger in 2023. And again, the coloration looks a little bit brighter. It's not as dark. It's a little lower contrast, it looks like. Also, I see the character's name is printed. So he's just referred to as the tennis coach. In 1993, even his player card, I thought, luckily, okay, I didn't stack the deck, but luckily this one was he's just called the tennis coach here, where here he's got a name. His name is Clay. So, I mean, there are some subtle differences in the art on the cards and on the player pieces and everything, but the primary art, the actual way the character looks, has stayed the same. So again, very, very minor, but it works for me. It works for me. This all holds up very nicely. I wish that the board had folded in half. I wish it had taped edges, and I wish that the clips didn't come through the center. But as far as actual gameplay and enjoyment and everything, there's very little that's changed. The cards are both nice and snappy, albeit 1993 again. When I really compare them, 1993 have a rougher feel, but they're thicker. 2023, it's a smoother feel, but it's thinner. This actually feasibly could be about the same weight. The cardstock is just a little bit more generously sized. The prints, both very nice. I'll give, oddly enough, the 2023, the cards are printed darker than the 1993. The 1993, it's pretty easily discernible that the cards are printed a lighter shade. But other than that, they're both snappy. They both do their job. I would say 93 is a little bit more pleasurable to hold in your hand as a playing card goes. Like I said, the dice are a little bit nicer. Actually, now that I compare them, the dice in 93 also feel heavier. But that's, again, really minor. They look almost identical, and size-wise, they're pretty much the same. It's just based on if they're etched or not. A little bit different weight in the plastic. The components for all the traps are largely the same when you really break them down and disassemble them. I would be pretty confident to say that they use the same molds, particularly because the steps, I noticed the steps, in the 1993 edition, the steps are actually clipped onto the backdrop here. In the 2023, the steps are just set on the board, not fastened to anything, yet the plastic molding shows the same clips placed on it that were on the 1993 edition that allowed for it to clip to the backdrop and have the steps stay in place as a stationary piece of scenery. So I'm reasonably certain that actually all the plastic molds are probably, if not identical, a really, really close approximation to what we had in 1993, or at least built to spec if they had to remake the molds. So again, it's a really great representation. Overall, I would say both are wonderful. If you could get 1993 in near mint condition and maybe not with McFarlane Spartan armor in lieu of the actual suit of armor that should be with it, which, I mean, realistically, it only takes me out of the game a little bit. But if you're, If you can get a 93 edition in good condition, I would say that I would probably opt for it just because I like how the board is constructed, and clearly the game can hold up. There are a few places where the stickers have started to peel, but that's going to happen with just about any board game. There's some wear to the cards. However, that being said, if you want readily available, super clean, hasn't been used, isn't worn out, get the Winning Moves edition. This is awesome. I don't mind at all that it's a quarter fold board with untaped edges. I wish that it had the more deluxe treatment, but overall the print quality is really good, and as an adult, I'm not going to beat the crap out of this enough that I'm really going to be so worried. Now, if I was buying it for a kid, okay, I get it. You know, this is going to wear a little bit faster. Kids are going to be rougher with that stuff. But again, it's pretty nominal difference overall. The fact that you get such a faithful representation of a beloved classic game, you can hardly do better than what Winning Moves has done here. I mean, this is the changes to design and stuff, even if they do cut costs, I can't accuse them of like ruining the game because they want to cut corners on anything. I would probably arguably say these can't be too different in production cost overall. I would like to see what the actual difference is. That would be kind of neat if I could find that information out. They'll never let me see it, but I don't really feel like this is one where value has been taken away from the product by reducing production costs in any way. I feel like you still get the full value for your money with this Winning Moves 30th anniversary edition of 13 Dead End Drive, and it's certainly a serviceable copy of the game. So by all means, I highly recommend picking this up. I actually didn't have the 93 edition growing up, so my first run with the game was when I play tested it for my video where I compared this Winning Moves edition to the 2002 13 Dead End Drive. And I gotta say, 13 Dead End Drive and 13 Dead End Drive, both great games. Wonderful riffs on the rule sets, lots of fun. There is so much fun to be had with 13 Dead End Drive, if nothing else, just because of the silliness. And again, I'm a sucker for these games that have gnarly little set pieces with cool art, and I love the little traps. I love the caricatures, all of the neat little airs that all seem real crooked. Like it's kind of fun. Nobody seems like a clear good guy or anything. They all seem kind of like greedy, mean, selfish people. So it's fun. You feel like you're playing with villains, and so it's okay to have that whimsical fun of they're all getting knocked off one by one, dropping like flies, trying to be the last one alive, foul play is afoot. It's a blast. Who wouldn't love it? So I guess I gotta ask you, have you played 13 Dead End Drive? Which do you prefer? Have you tried the 93 versus the 2023? Did you think that any of the differences were a big deal breaker? Comment below and let me know. Thanks for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.